Welcome back to Films Retold. Today we're going to break down Severance Episode 7. There will be spoilers, so if you have not seen the episode yet, you have been warned. If you enjoy this content, please remember to subscribe and like the video. Okay, let's get into it. We start off right where we left off in Episode 6, with Mark following Ragabi through the school. Mark asks who she is, and she replies that she was the one who helped his friend Petey. Mark dismisses her by saying helped him. The reintegration killed him. However, we learn that Petey didn't exactly follow protocol, and he would have survived if he didn't run away. We then learn that Ragabi is the one who actually performs the severance procedure for Lumen, and that she was the one who put the chip in Mark's head. As they are discussing, Mr. Grainer shows up. He tells Mark that he works with him, and asks if he was talking to someone else because Ragabi is out of his line of sight. Just as Mr. Grainer tries to approach, Ragabi sneaks up behind Grainer, killing him with a baseball bat. Mark, after witnessing this, is extremely scared. Ragabi tells Mark to help her with the body, and Mark says, "Oh my god, I work with him," with Ragabi replying, "No, you don't." Ragabi then gives Mark Grainer's security card, telling Mark that his innie will know what to do. Mark gives Petey's phone back to Ragabi and is told to get rid of his clothing. Mark returns home and immediately starts to bag up his clothing when he's interrupted by Alexa. Mark tries to lie about where he was, but Alexa does not seem to be buying it, and eventually just leaves. We then cut to the next morning where Mark is getting ready for work. He puts the bag of clothes into the trash can outside. Cobell notices this and mentions that Mark looks terrible. The two then go their separate ways. We then cut to Milchek testing the new doors that we saw being installed in Episode 6. He then proceeds to get the infographic card that Dylan stole from R&D. Milchek then returns the card to Bert, and we learn that Bert had been in the break room for what happened in the last episode where Mark's team went to R&D. Milchek then tells Bert that he has a surprise for him and that he should stay tuned to see what it is. Milchek then greets Dylan as the elevator opens and explains to Dylan what happened in Episode 6, was what was called the overtime contingency. Milchek tells Dylan that OTC is need to know only, and that he should not mention any of this to his colleagues. He also mentions that he did not consult Miss Cobell because he feared she was under too much stress as it was. This becomes more relevant later in the episode. Next up, Mark is greeted by Milchek as the elevator opens. He tells Mark that he will be escorting Mark to his desk. Mark realizes the new doors and says, "So we're locked in here now?" Mark greets the rest of his team and notices something off with Dylan. We then cut to Cobell coaching Mark's sister on how to breastfeed. When she's done, she just tosses the baby doll like it was nothing. Now I understand it was a fake baby, but the scene gave me the creeps. The two then start discussing Mark and his wife. It's clear that Cobell is trying to get information from Devin to see if Mark talks about his wife, or even if he mentions that he sees her. Devin picks up on this and gives Cobell a strange look. Back at the severed floor, Milchek brings in a record player and tells Helly that she's earned a music dance experience. The reward is only supposed to be given when a worker reaches 75% of a file's completion, but it is noted that by Irv that Helly has only reached 73%. Something to note here is that Helly has been getting special treatment from the beginning. Now, this could be Milchek's way of boosting morale in the office since the new doors were installed, or perhaps she gets the special treatment because of who she's related to. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please check out my other video, Is Helly an Egan? Everyone seems to be genuinely enjoying themselves, with the exception of Dylan, who is still sitting at his desk doing work. As they are all dancing, Mark realizes he has the security card that Ragabi gave him in the beginning, but Mark quietly puts it back into his pocket. Milchek then starts to dance behind Dylan, throwing him into a rage, tackling Milchek into the record player. Dylan screams at Milchek to give me his name, referring to his son that he saw. Dylan then proceeds to bite Milchek. The rest of the group pulls Dylan off Milchek. Something really great about this scene is how the rest of Dylan's team doesn't seem to be holding him to restrain him, but rather they're trying to protect Dylan, embracing him. The innies very clearly care about each other. Milchek threatens Dylan with telling Cobell about what he's done, but Dylan stands his ground and says, "Let's go together," because he knows Milchek never told Cobell about activating any Dylan outside of Lumen. Really gives the vibes of two children on a playground when one of them just says, "I'm going to tell the teacher on you," and the other says, "I'm going to tell on you first." Just a really funny situation to see, and how it actually seems to work on Milchek. Milchek then leaves, declaring that the music dance experience has officially ended. Mark asks Dylan what the hell happened, and Dylan explains that Lumen can wake them up from outside the building. He tells him that he's seen his son, and that he can't just not think of him while at work. Helly says that this is a good thing, and says if they can do that, then what stops us from being able to do it to ourselves? Mark then reveals that he has Grainer's key card, and that they would be able to get into the security office with it. "It's time for a field trip," says Helly. The group sets off, leaving Dylan behind to distract Milchek if he returns. As the group is walking to the security office, Irv splits off and instead decides to go to R&D to see Bert. Helly and Mark enter the security office and is shown all the cameras and equipment used to keep the innies in check. As Helly is walking through, we are shown the same device used to wake up Innie Dylan behind her. We are then shown the names of other severed people working in different departments. If you freeze right before Helly fully walks in, you can see what looks like 14 different departments on the wall. If you assume each department is separated by a gap in the names. Some departments seem to be very large, while others seem much smaller. Each name has a light next to them, possibly representing whether or not the severance chip is activated on that person. They also have 4 numbers next to their names. Everything seems to be labeled, but it's hard to see what it says because if you zoom in, it becomes too difficult to read the letters. If you can read what the labels are, put them in the comments. Next, we're shown another screen that shows the status of the elevators. Mark notices that Cobell is descending down to the severed floor. It seems the severed and the non-severed people have their own elevators, which would explain why Cobell was able to enter the severed floor with Rickon's book. As Helly is flipping through the security handbook, we see pages labeled Clean Slate Cycle, Elephant Access Circuit, Branch Transfer System, and the page Overtime Contingency Protocol. Again, the writing is hard to make out, so if somebody does end up analyzing the pages, please let us know in the comments. Helly quickly rips out the OTC page, and her and Mark leave before Cobell catches them. Cobell is then stopped by Natalie, who informs her that she's on the line with the board, and that Grainer is dead. Cobell is shocked that Grainer has been killed, but says whoever did it must be the same person who reintegrated Petey. Cobell tells the board that she has proof that reintegration is possible, and that she would like to show them in person, which they agree. We then cut to Helly, Mark, and Dylan going over the page Helly stole. They make a plan to send Dylan's innie to the outside world because it requires 2 people to activate the protocol, and also the fact that Dylan has already been on the outside once before. Next up, Irv has made it to R&D and notices they're having a melon party. Milchick wheels in the TV and we learn that Bert's Audi is retiring. This enrages Irv because of the feelings he has for Bert. Milchick tells Irv that his Audi will one day also retire, leading Irv to say,
"You smug motherfucker."
Milchick snaps back at him, telling Irv that he will return to his department, but Bert convinces Milchick to allow Irv to stay. Irv eventually does return to his department where he's met with the rest of his team. Irv stares at them all and says, "Let's burn this place to the ground." I'm glad Irvin is now starting to see the issue with his blind loyalty to the Egan philosophy. It's going to be exciting to see more of his character being rebellious. We then cut to Audi Mark sitting in his house drinking by himself, until Alexa knocks on his door and says that she left her phone there. Mark invites her in, but Alexa tries to leave. However, Mark convinces her to stay a little. Mark is clearly drunk in this scene. Alexa says that she doesn't think that Mark is ready for a relationship. Mark then takes a picture of his wife and rips it up to try and prove that he's over her, but this just worries Alexa even more, and she leaves. Mark then picks up the pieces of the picture and starts to put it back together, saying things about his wife in a similar way that Miss Casey does in a wellness session. Then when he's done, it is shown that Mark's wife is actually Miss Casey, ending episode 7. Now, this was a theory floating around Reddit since episode 5, but I wasn't sure if it really had a leg to stand on because we, the audience, have only been told that Gemma was killed in a crash. It was never implied that Gemma was a part of the Severance program. Also, we are led to believe that Mark got severed after his wife died, so it's definitely an interesting turn of events. There was a clue, however. When Cobell stole the candle from Mark's house, it was taken from a tote labeled Gemma's Arts and Crafts. The next time we see that candle, it is lit next to Miss Casey while doing the wellness session with Mark. Everyone assumed, including myself, that the candle was there to trigger something to Mark, but now it's definitely possible that it was there for Miss Casey the whole time. It makes me wonder if Lumen got a hold of Gemma's body after the crash and were able to save her, but perhaps she had irreversible brain damage, which would be the reason why Miss Casey seems so much like a robot to us. Another theory I have is that Gemma was involved in the Severance program long before the accident, and the version of Miss Casey we see is only a backup of her innie. Cobell has referred to Petey's severance chip as Petey himself, so maybe they do keep backups of everyone severed. So that about does it for this video. What are your theories and predictions for the next episode? Drop me a comment and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.